Hey folks, this is John here at TopCat Mulchers.
I'm going to interrupt this video here on the front end. First of all, this video was about the oil cooler radiator on my TopCat, which failed. It sprung a leak. By the way, since then, I've gotten a number of inquiries from other TopCat owners looking for replacement radiators. So clearly, this is an issue. The radiator has a problem. When I first made this video, I made certain assumptions. One, I assumed that something had gotten up inside the radiator area and punctured the radiator. Two, the parts diagram on the website did not even list the radiator. That's the website you see before you now, the AGT Industrial. They're the company that provides the TopCat and TopCat parts for the US that I'm aware of. Well, the parts list did not even show the radiator on the list, so I was not certain they could provide it. So Agrotk was not able to provide a replacement radiator. I had reached out to them several times, multiple times, with no response. So let me kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So if you happen to go to AGT Industrial, you can find this information over here under attachment. Go to attachment, skid steer, come down to forestry mulcher. All right, and that'll bring you here to this unit right here. This is the mulcher. This is the TopCat mulcher. I've talked about this one before. All right, so first of all, let me point something out here because this is going to be relevant to my discussion. Here it is, a 30 to 52 gallon per minute mulcher. That is high flow. Now, there may be some argument about the 30 gallon per minute, but I'll tell you that by definition, 30 to 52 is high flow. And that's going to be important. That comment is going to be important. And we are talking about the SSFM81. This is the unit you buy off of auction, predominantly Ritchie Brothers, known as the TopCat Mulcher. And this is the item. So when I had the radiator problem, when the radiator sprung a leak, I came looking for parts. And so this is the parts diagram, okay, for this mulcher. And so if you look here, by the way, I'll have these links in the detailed description. So if you look here, you'll notice on this diagram, it's not there. So that was the reason that I looked at this and said, well, I'm going to go have to find an alternate plan. So when it appeared to me that I couldn't find a direct replacement part, I went looking for a third-party replacement. And here's what I discovered, and this is important. Um, Oil cooling radiators whose specifications stated that they would handle the pressures generated by a high flow skid steer were very expensive. Okay, they were in the $3,000 to $5,000 range, and $3,000 to $5,000 to repair this skid steer. Repair this mulcher. It's just, well, that's outrageous. Nobody would do it, I don't think, anyway. Okay, the PSI on the high flow side, at least on my skid steer, can reach 2,000 PSI and more. Okay, these are important numbers. You're going to see why in a minute. And having a radiator repaired was the most cost-effective solution for me. In other words, I wasn't going to pay 3,000 to 5,000. I know it was running high flow, and I know the pressures can get up to 2,000. So I decided I would go have that radiator repaired. So I took it over to Don Hart's Radiator. Don Hart's Radiator place here in the area, about an hour from here in Waller, Texas. Great group of people, by the way. I located them and found that they actually do radiator repair for hydraulic and oil cooling systems. Not all radiator shops will do that. They do. So once they took a look at the radiator, I took it over to them, and once they took a look at the radiator, there were several things that came out of this that was pretty interesting. One, the radiator had not been punctured. They confirmed that it had not been punctured, but rather that it ruptured due to overpressure. I asked them to give me their assessment of the specifications related to PSI. They stated that that radiator likely would not handle more than 300 to 600 PSI. That's Radiator Professional's assessment, no more than 300 to 600. So there's my concern that we have a system pumping up to 2,000 PSI who on the back end of the motor is taking the hydraulic fluid, running it through a radiator that can't handle more than 300 to 600 psi. Again, I don't know what's happening on the back end of that motor, but I sort of figure it's probably more than 600 psi on occasion. So I went ahead and had them repair it, and that because at that time I had no way of buying or finding a new one, so I had them repair it. It was $1,500. Yes, ouch, that hurt, $1,500, but I needed a radiator. However, since then, Agrotk has made the radiator available for order. Now let's take a look. So when you're here on the site and you go in, you will now see, these weren't there before, you will now see the radiator right here at the top of the screen. It's $650, and that is, by the way, the radiator. Okay, there's been enough interest relative to this radiator that they have placed it on their website. Now that tells me that there's a problem. One, my radiator ruptured. I was told by experts, overpressure. I've had 3 other TopCat users contact me asking where to get the radiator. I've sent them this information. So there's been at least 3 others with failed radiators. Based on what I've been told, based on my experience, my opinion, I'm not a radiator specialist, I'm not a hydraulic specialist, my opinion is that radiator is under spec'd for this application. But we shall see. So I just want to let you know, and here we will go ahead and continue with the video.
I had parked this unit about a week ago and hadn't had any issues. Came over, hooked it up, and the moment I turned it on, hydraulic fluid started leaking out of the Mulcher area. And it turns out, it looks like I've got a leak in the hydraulic cooling system. If you've opened up this cover before, I had opened it up in a prior video because we had to wire in this fan, had to get it working. You'll know that right here under this cover is the cooling section for the hydraulics. There's basically a radiator there, if you want to call it that the hydraulic fluid flows through. And if you look at it, there's this cover that goes here is pretty much sealed other than a few openings for air to flow through. There's a area right here to open, which I'm not sure what value that is, but it's completely sealed, so there's nothing can get in there. And then there's an area right down here that has slots in it for airflow. Now when I opened this up and looked in here, there was no large pieces of material. There was no sticks got in there, no rocks got in there. There's nothing that I can see inside there that could have gotten into the fins, into this area, and caused damage. So I'm not sure why the leak is taking place. It was fine when I parked it, as far as I know, and as it sat here and I hooked it up, it just started leaking, and I mean leaking a lot. So let me get up there and start it and show you what's going on. All right, so if you keep an eye right in that area right there, I believe that's where the leak seems to be. If there's more than one, I don't know, but let me just kind of tap it here and see if we can get some hydraulic fluid running through there. All right, so I've done a look around, and from what I can tell, pulling that unit out is a matter of removing that. It doesn't look too complicated. There's mounting bolts here, 3 on each side, 3 over here, and I don't see anything else underneath there that could be holding it on. So you've got to pull that hydraulic line off, and then down here underneath, you got to get in there and pull that off. And I believe with that, it should come right out. So, and if you look down in here, you see there's just, it's not there's not a lot of stuff in there. I mean, it's not like there's giant pieces of stick that got thrown up in there and shoved in. It'd be, now you could possibly, right through that hole right there, something could make its way up through there, but it's not in there at the moment. I guess it could have went up and come out, but it looks more like it's damaged up here on the top because the hydraulic fluid's coming out this direction. So I'm not sure. I do see some fins in there that look like they've gotten squashed, but I don't know if they came from the factory like that. All right, so I'm not going to bore you with all the details of pulling bolts out. I'm just going to remove the 2 hydraulic lines, pull those 6 bolts out, and see where we get. I'll show you that later. All right, well, that was surprisingly simple, or should say easy. Well, simple and easy. Just disconnected that hose. That one was a little difficult because there was not much room to maneuver, but it came off with a small pipe wrench. Couldn't get a big enough crescent in there, but got a small pipe wrench and it came loose perfectly fine. And you just had the 3 screws and it lifted right out. This is the unit. This is the bottom side, the part that's facing down. You can see that it did suck some debris up in there, but overall it's pretty clean. Kind of suggests to me that I should be opening it more often and pressure washing or cleaning that out. So if you've been using your mulcher for a while and you haven't done that, you probably ought to open that cover up and down through the fan area. That is down through here. Kind of pressure wash down through there. I can see plenty of light through there, so it was getting plenty of airflow. All right, so I'm going to pull that fan shroud cover off and see where we go from there. Hopefully this thing can be repaired. We shall see. All right, so removing this fan shroud was pretty simple. It's just 3 of these hex bolts on each side came right out. I will say, just to be picky, this one here on one side, you can't quite see it, but it was looks like it was cross-threaded at the factory, so I'm probably going to have some problems getting that back in if it ends up going back in. So something as I was taking it apart, I wanted to mention, if you find yourself needing to take yours apart and you notice yours doesn't have this connector allowing you to easily disconnect it from the power cable that comes from your 14-pin connector up there, that's because I installed this. If you didn't see my other video, this was all hardwired all the way up, all the way through and to the connector, which I had to install. Early on, I decided that I would put these little waterproof connectors in there. Should I ever need to take this out, I wouldn't have to cut the wire at that time. So I guess it paid off now, but we shall see. So I'm going to go ahead and finish opening this up, and let's see what happens. All right, so here's with the fan shroud taken off, and this is sort of to the front of the mulcher, and the leak appeared to be coming from this area right here, but as I look at it, it's kind of hard to tell, and I don't see any actual damage. It perhaps coming from deeper down inside. You can see those are pushed in